History is one of the most important subjects for the IAS exam. Indian history for UPSC is a very vast subject covering the following areas. Here discuss about ancient Indian history. Introduction. Indian civilization first developed on the Indus River. The geography of India includes high mountains, great rivers, and heavy seasonal rain. Harappan civilization developed along the Indus River. The Aryan invasion of India changed the region's civilization. Geography. India's name came from the Indus River. One of the oldest civilization is a huge triangular peninsula of South Asia, surrounded by China, the Himalayan kingdoms, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. The huge area, 31,85,019 square kilometers, makes it larger than Europe without USSR. It has three distinct landscapes: Hindustan in the north, Deccan Plateau in the center. Tamil South includes coastal plain on both sides. India has great variations in elevation, landforms, and climate. 23% is covered with forests and only 57% of the land is arable, and agricultural productivity is poor due to social problems and uneven rainfall. It is the world's seventh largest industrial nation, second largest textile producer in the world, and the largest exporter of jewelry. New Delhi is the capital of India. The most famous river in India is the Ganga River. With a population of 800 million, the Indians represent a wide variety of races, religions and languages. The majority are of Aryan, Caucasian origin, the rest are Mongoloid or Negroid. The dominant religion is Hinduism, the rest are Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, Jain, Christian, and Parsi. There are 14 languages and 831 dialects. Hindi is the official language of India. Indian civilization began in the Indus Valley up north about 3000 BC. The ruins of the ancient cities are found in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, Pakistan. The early dark-skinned people called the Dravidians built cities, temples, and artworks. About 2000 BC, the fair-skinned Aryans invaded the Indus Valley. They spoke Sanskrit and founded small kingdoms in the fertile plains of North India. They gave India the Vedic literature, Sanskrit epics, Hinduism and the caste system. The Vedic literature reflects the life and culture of the ancient Aryans of India. It consists of 4 literary works. 1. Vedas are composed of hymns, prayers, rituals, magic and poetry. They were the earliest sacred books of Hindus. 2. Brahmanas are prose texts containing observations on religious rites. Also include legends of the exploits of ancient kings and heroes. 3. Arankayas are books of instructions for the hermits in the forests. Contains elaborate rules for the performance of religious ceremonies. 4. Upanishads, also books of instructions given by a father to his son or the teacher to pupil. Sanskrit epics. The 2 great Sanskrit epics of ancient India were Mahabharata, one of the world's longest literary works. The story of 2 Indian families struggling for control of a kingdom. Many long passages of Hindu beliefs and practices. Sanskrit epics. Ramayana. The story of a god, Vishnu, who has taken human form. Written long after the Mahabharata, contains models for the ideal ruler, Rama, and the ideal mate, Sita. Origins of Hinduism. Hinduism, the largest religion in India today, developed out of ancient Indian beliefs and practices. Indian society divided into distinct groups under the Aryans. The Aryans practiced a religion known as Brahmanism. Hinduism developed out of Brahmanism and influences from other cultures. The Jains reacted to Hinduism by breaking away to form their own religion. Hinduism. Aryans also laid the foundation of Hinduism. Hinduism is the world's oldest organized religion. It began as nature worship, animism, as the Aryans prayed to forces of nature for favors. Thus, it has 300 million gods and goddesses representing natural forces and personified gods to suit human needs. The chief Hindu god is Brahma, the creator and world soul. Lesser gods are Vishnu, preserver, and Shiva, destroyer. Hindu believe that these gods intercede for men, Thus their favors must be won by means of offerings, prayers, and rituals. They also believe in karma, destiny, and reincarnation. A good soul is reborn after each into a higher status, a bad soul into a lower status or animal. The caste system has become part of Indian life due to the religious approval given to it by Hinduism. It divides people into rigid caste or classes: Brahmans, priests and scholars; Kshatriyans, rulers and warriors; Vaishyas, farmers, artists and merchants; Sudras, workers and slaves; Untouchables, persons who do not belong to any class and the dirtiest work like cleaning toilets and collecting garbage. Began as a race prejudice of the Aryans against the Dravidians. To dominate them further, the Aryan masters made class divisions a holy law. Thus, the Untouchables may not enter temples or use public baths and wells, for they would desecrate or pollute other castes and offend the gods. Buddhism started in the 6th century. The religion was named its founder, Gautama Buddha, son of rich Raja in Nepal. Although he lived in the palace amid luxurious delights, he was unhappy because of the poverty and ignorance of the masses. At 29, he left his family and palace and wandered as a poor beggar in search of the truth. For 45 years, he explained his teachings to the prince and masses. He was died and was buried in Nepal around 486 BC. Like Confucius, Buddha did not claim to found a new religion. He intended his teachings to be a system of human philosophy, to guide men in their search for true happiness. His aim was to reform Hinduism, with its cruel division into castes. Buddha taught all men the Four Noble Truths. 1. Man's life is filled with suffering. 2. Man's sufferings is caused by his selfish desires. 3. Man can end his suffering by conquering his selfish desires. 4. After ridding himself of suffering, man attains the state of nirvana. Eightfold Path. 1. Right belief. 2. Right aspiration. 3. Right speech. 4. Right conduct. 5. Right livelihood. 6. Right effort. 7. Right remembrance. 8. Right meditation. Persian and Greek invasion of India. At the end of 6th century BC, the Persian hordes of Darius I conquered the Aryan kingdoms of the Indus Valley. The Persians introduced Aramaic writing, Purda, the practice of secluding women at home and women wearing a veil in the public, and Zoroastrianism, the religion of the Parsis in Bombay today. In 326 BC, another invader appeared in northern India. He was Alexander the Great of Macedonia. When he sadly left in 324 BC, Alexander had made a deep impression on Indian history. India was open to European trade and Alexander paved the way for Indian unity. Maurya Empire. The first Hindu empire, it was founded by Chandragupta Maurya, who rallied the Indians and drove away the Greeks after Alexander died. The Maurya Empire covered the whole India peninsula, except South India. Chandragupta stepped down from the throne and became a monk. Bindusara continued the policies by his father. Asoka, his grandson, became the greatest Maurya emperor. He made Buddhism the state religion and sent missionaries to other Asian countries. He built inns, orphanages, and hospitals, and led an exemplary life. Ashoka is regarded as the greatest ruler in the history of India. The prosperous and peaceful reign of Ashoka is reflected in the art of period. Sunga Empire. The Maurya Empire continued about 50 years after Ashoka's death. The government was weak. The last Mauryan king was assassinated by his own army commander. General Pushyamitra Sunga became king. Sunga restored Vedic traditions such as animal sacrifice. The government of the Sunga Empire was not centralized as that of the earlier empire. It allowed provinces to govern themselves, although as vassals of the empire. Sunga Empire lasted 71 BC. It was marked by frequent invasions of foreigners into India. A new wave of migrants arrived from North and East Asia. Among these migrants were the nomadic Saka. The Saka gained in strength until they gained control of almost the whole of northern India. Other tribes continued to stream into India. One of these was the Yuchi, who were forced out of Mongolia. Kushan Empire. The Yuchi came under a strong leader Kitfizai, who led them in overthrowing the Saka in Kabul. He founded the Kushan Empire. The most famous Kushan king was Kanishka. He gained control over the whole of northern India. He embraced Buddhism and contributed greatly to its expansion up to China. The empire continued until the first half of the 2nd century, when the Sassanid dynasty of Persia reached India. In a great war, the Persian defeated the Kushan king, and then from that time on, a great part of the northwest India came under Persian influence. Gupta Empire. In 321 AD, a strong king rose up from Patna, the former capital of Maurya Empire. This king Chandragupta also owed his rapid ascent to power to an advantageous marriage to a princess from a powerful family. By this means, Chandragupta's kingdom easily expanded, upon which he founded the Gupta Empire. The king who followed Chandragupta added to the kingdom's territory until it came to cover the whole northern India and influenced a great part of the south. It became a time of peace and prosperity. The arts of painting and sculpture flowered. The royal court supported poets and playwrights, the most famous of which Kalidasa, the foremost writer in Sanskrit, who is still admired today. In the field of science, the astronomer, Aryabhata, proposed his theory that the earth circled the sun. Like Copernicus, he was not believed by his contemporaries. He also calculated the length of time it took for the earth to revolve around the axis. Fall of the Gupta Empire. On the 6th century, the Gupta Empire was already weak. The central government was almost powerless, while the governors of the provinces became stronger until they became as powerful as king within their territory. New invaders called the White Huns. The Huns massacred the population of many communities in the northwest and burned down the cities. The Huns did not stay very long in India after massive slaughter and destruction. The Huns could not bear the warmer climate in India. Mughal Empire. Islam was brought to India by the Muslims from the Persian Gulf in 711 AD. By the 14th century, Islamic kings ruled over a kingdom as large as Ashoka's Maurya Empire. Muslim conquerors introduced Islam in the urban areas. They destroyed Hindu temples and persecuted the Brahmins. In the long run, two new religions were introduced in the Indian subcontinent, Islam and Sikhism. The interaction between Islam and Hinduism also brought a new language, Hindustani, and literature. Akbar the Great is the founder of Mughal Empire. He showed political genius by adopting a policy of reconciliation toward the Hindus. He promoted arts and literature, encouraged industries and trade, and tolerated all religions. His grandson, Shah Jahan, gained fame not as a dashing warrior but as a generous patron of art. He built the Taj Mahal at Agra in memory of his beloved wife, Muhammad's Mahal. By the 19th century, the glory of the Mughal faded. Religious art temples. Both Hindu and Buddhist temples began flourishing under Gupta rule. Once simply constructed meeting places, Hindu temples became complex towers covered with intricate carvings. Buddhist temples were large and impressive, some carved out of mountainsides. Buddhist stupas were built to house sacred objects from the life of the Buddha. They were covered with detailed carvings. Paintings and sculpture. Great artists were commissioned by rich and powerful members of society. Paintings offered a perspective on the daily life and religious belief of the ancient Indians. Many of these paintings could be found on the walls of temples. Indian sculptors carved columns, statues, and entire temples in the likenesses of the Buddha and Hindu gods. Scientific advances. Many advances in science, medicine, astronomy, and mathematics came out of India. This is a depiction of an ancient Indian book that predicts eclipses of the sun and moon. Medicine. Using plants and minerals, Indian doctors made advances in medicinal science. They were among the first to practice inoculation and perform surgery. One doctor from ancient India wrote a book on how he rebuilt noses through plastic surgery. He no doubt needed to do this often, since having one's nose cut off was one of the punishments for committing a crime. Mathematics. This is a sample of elaborate mathematical calculations taken from an Indian text around 600 BCE. An Indian named Brahmagupta is credited with inventing the idea of zero. This changed greatly how mathematics could be used. They also developed a sophisticated number system, the Hindu-Arabic numerals. Astronomy. Indian astronomers knew of 7 about the 9 planets in the solar system and could predict eclipses of the sun and moon. Contributions. Ancient India is also credited with inventing the magnetic compass. Indians sailed the Indian Ocean in boats that were guided by a metal fish floating in oil. The fish pointed north, acting as a compass for boats. Metallurgy. Pioneers of metallurgy, the Indians created tools and weapons by mixing iron and other metals together. Conclusion. Ancient India brought inventions, ideas, philosophies and social and cultural traditions that have spread throughout many of the world's cultures. This huge subcontinent with its rich and varied history was certainly one of the greatest early civilizations in the world. Thank you.